The stars above flickered quietly, hiding the war below. Inside the command ship of the Zaan Empire, General Verix stood still, watching the screen in front of him. Thousands of battle recordings played on loop. Humans, shouting, running, shooting. Soldiers wore colored badges, red for commanders, blue for medics, silver for engineers. It all made sense, except one. One human did not shout. One human had no badge. One human was followed by everyone. "Who is this man?" General Verix asked, pointing at the silent figure on the screen. Commander Rill, his assistant, tapped the screen. "He has no rank, sir. We checked every database. He is not listed as commander, general, or captain." "Then why does he give orders?" Verix asked slowly. "And why do they listen?" The screen showed the silent man walking through a burning battlefield. Human soldiers noticed him, nodded once, and moved with purpose, no questions asked. A tank reversed course the moment he waved. 2 fighter jets turned mid-air after he pointed. No spoken orders, no device used. "It's like they understand his thoughts," Rill whispered. Verix leaned forward. The man on the screen knelt beside a wounded soldier. He didn't carry a gun. He carried tools, needles, bandages, scanners. He worked fast. Blood sprayed, then stopped. On the corner of the screen, a name tag blinked. One word, Doc. "What does Doc mean?" Verix asked. RH Ill searched fast. "It's short for doctor, a healer, a non-combatant." The command room went silent. "A healer?" Verix narrowed his eyes. "Then why do warriors follow a healer?" No one answered. The video switched. A new battlefield, new soldiers, but the same man, Doc. He didn't stand in front. He didn't shout. Yet again, soldiers moved the moment. He did. They trusted him. Some even smiled at him, even with bullets flying past. "Show me the footage from the Vargan War," Verix said. They opened it. The worst human defeat in years. But there, walking through fire and smoke, was Doc. His coat burned at the edges. His eyes cold and focused. He carried a child, a Vargan child. He saved the enemy's young. Verix stepped back. "This is no ordinary man." Rill nodded. "He doesn't kill, but even killers follow him." General Verix crossed his arms. "Then we need to understand him, watch him, learn his methods." Commander Rill spoke carefully. "Some say he appears before major human victories. He doesn't fight, yet battles turn when he arrives. There's a pattern." Verix's voice dropped. "So, he is their secret weapon." They zoomed in on the man's face. Calm, tired, not young, not old, just, human. Verix's ship moved closer to Earth's outer colonies. He wanted to witness this man firsthand. "Next battle, we isolate him," Verix ordered. "Capture if possible, kill if not." A small alert blinked on the screen. Human forces were landing on planet Sarvan 3, and he was with them. Doc. The Zaan set their trap. On Sarvan 3 the air was thick with ash. The land had once been green, now turned black by endless war. Human ships landed. Soldiers spread out, and from one transport, Doc stepped down. He wore no armor, just a plain white coat. A young soldier ran up to him. "Doc, we lost 2 already." Near the ridge, Doc didn't panic. He simply nodded. "Take me to them." Even with bombs falling, the soldiers formed a path for him, like guarding something holy. High above, from the Zaan ship, Verix watched. "There you see, they move for him. Not generals, not commanders. Him." Rill nodded. "Orders. Send the stalkers. Quiet, quick, bring him back alive." Doc knelt beside a screaming soldier. A piece of metal was lodged in the man's chest. Another soldier, barely older than a teenager, watched with wide eyes. "Can you save him, Doc?" Doc spoke softly. "I can try, but I need silence." The soldier nodded. Doc's single quotes hands worked fast. No shaking, no fear. He opened the wound, slid the metal out, clamped the artery. The bleeding slowed. The man breathed again. "Good," Doc whispered. "You stay with me, soldier. Don't go yet." Behind him, shadows moved. Not human. Tall, thin, silent. Zaan stalkers. They stepped toward him. But just before they reached Doc 3, human soldiers leaped from nowhere, guns blazing. "Protect the Doc," one shouted. The aliens fought back. Lasers hissed. Smoke filled the air. But more soldiers came, not ordered, not called. They came because he was there. Doc turned to the wounded man. "Can you walk?" The man groaned, but nodded. "Good." Doc said. We leave together. The battle didn't stop, but something changed. The aliens weren't chasing an army anymore. They were chasing one man, and everyone else was protecting him. Back in orbit, Varric slammed his fist on the console. How do they all know where he is? They have no communication. Rill stared at the screen. It's not technology, sir. It's loyalty. Varric glared. Loyalty? To a man who does not command. Rill's voice dropped. No, sir. Loyalty to someone who heals. They don't fear him. They trust him. The screen zoomed in again. Doc's face, covered in dirt and blood. Still calm. Still standing. Still walking through death. To bring life. Varric turned away. Then we've made a mistake. Rill frowned. What mistake? Varric whispered, almost afraid of the answer. We studied human ranks, generals, captains, soldiers, but we never studied their heart. He looked back at the man in white, the one they call Doc. The battle on Sarvan 3 had changed course, not because of new weapons, not because of human strategy, because of one man, a man who carried no weapon, a man who never gave orders, a man simply called Doc. High above the battlefield, inside the Zarn warship, General Varric stood still. His eyes were locked on the screen. We underestimated him, Varric said quietly. He's not a commander, but he commands. Commander Rill stood beside him. He doesn't lead by force, sir. He leads by presence. When he walks, they follow. When he kneels, they guard. Varric narrowed his eyes. He is dangerous not because of what he does, but what he means to them. The Zarn War Council had reached one conclusion. Doc had to be removed, but killing him wouldn't be enough. They had to break what he represented. Set the trap, Varric ordered. Draw him in, hurt their trust. If the humans lose faith in him, they fall apart. On the planet's surface, the smoke from battle still rose into the grey sky. Doc worked quickly. Inside a damaged field tent, 3 wounded soldiers lay on the ground. 2 were unconscious. One stared at the ceiling, breathing in sharp, pained gasps. His lungs collapsed. Doc said. A young assistant named Bren leaned forward. Can we fix it? Doc nodded. We don't have the right tools, but I can improvise. He pulled a tube from an old medpack and made a small incision between the ribs. The soldier gasped and then, suddenly, his chest began to rise, normally. Dot sighed. He'll live. Doc, Bren said. Why don't you wear armor? Doc glanced at him. Armor keeps bullets out. It also makes people forget what you're here to do. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to keep them alive. Bren looked down. Even when they keep dying. Doc paused, then answered quietly. I can't save everyone, but if I can bring even one soldier home, I do it. Hours passed. The fighting slowed. Then a strange message came through the comms, a distress signal from deep within the ruins of an old human science outpost. The signal was clear. Medical help needed. Civilians injured. Trapped. The commander of the human unit frowned. Too far from current lines. It might be a trap. Doc stepped forward. If there's even a chance someone needs help, I'm going. The commander hesitated. Take a squad with you. Doc shook his head. If it's a trap, I won't risk more lives. Just give me one medic and a drone. Bren stepped up. I'll go with him. And just like that, the two disappeared into the ruins. The outpost was quiet. Dead quiet. Twisted metal, burned walls, shattered glass. Their footsteps echoed across the broken tiles. Doc held up a scanner. Life signs faint. But there's something here. Bren looked nervous. Why? Aren't there any bodies? Doc paused. That was strange. Then the scanner went dark. A low humming noise filled the air. Doc turned to Bren. We need to move. Now. But before they could leave, steel doors slammed shut behind them. Gas hissed. Lights flickered from the shadows. They appeared. Tall, silent. The Zarn hunters. You were right, Doc muttered. It was a trap. Bren raised his hands, shaking. What do we do? Doc remained calm. Stay behind me. Watch their movements. They don't want us dead, yet. A voice echoed from the wall speakers. Doc, the heart of the human army. We've been watching you. Doc stepped forward. Then you know I'm not a threat. You are the greatest threat. You hold their spirit together. So today, we'll take that spirit apart. A wall screen lit up, showing live footage. Outside, human soldiers were watching a broadcast. They saw Doc trapped, surrounded. And the message flashed. He cannot save you now. On the front lines, the humans stood frozen. They saw their protector captured. Whispers spread. If Doc's caught, What chance do we have? Without him, we're just soldiers. The Zaan had planned it perfectly. Break the symbol. Crack the unity dot. But symbols do more than just stand tall. They inspire. Inside the prison, Doc looked at the alien leader. You're making a mistake. The Zaan hunter hissed. You fear us. Doc shook his head. No, I fear for you. The alien laughed. You are unarmed, trapped, powerless. Doc smiled faintly. You think this is about me, but I was never the one in command. The alien paused. What do you mean? Suddenly, the wall behind them exploded. Smoke and fire rushed in. Soldiers stormed the room, human soldiers, fully armored, fully ready. They didn't wait for orders. They just came, because Doc was in danger. The alien leader hissed. But how? They didn't know where. Bren stepped forward, smiling. We always track his heartbeat. Doc walked forward, untouched, calm. He looked at the alien. You thought I led them. He pointed at the soldiers. They led themselves, because of what they believe in. The alien stood frozen. The trap had turned on them. Back on the ship, General Verex watched the footage. He saw Doc walk out of the ruined base. Soldiers cheered. The message was clear. You can trap the man, but not the meaning. Rill turned. What now, sir? Varek sighed. We tried to break their spirit, but all we did was prove it's real. In the ashes of Savanthre, the humans walked. Again, not because they were ordered, but because someone had reminded them. Even in war, one person, with no gun, with no armor, with only the will to help, can become everything. And that person was still with them. Doc. Smoke still rose from the shattered ruins of the Zaan trap. Doc had been rescued. The human soldiers cheered. But something felt off. Doc sat quietly inside the mobile medbay, staring at his own reflection in a cracked screen. Bren watched him from across the room. You're not happy? Doc shook his head slowly. No, that was too easy. Bren frowned. We almost died in there. Doc looked up. And yet, they let the cameras run. They let soldiers watch me trapped. It wasn't just about me. It was a test, a message, but not for us. Far above the planet, in deep orbit, a dark Zaan vessel hovered silently. Inside, the real plan was unfolding. An old Zaan commander, face covered in scars, stood in front of a glowing display. His name was Threx, and he had studied humans for 12 years. He didn't care about human weapons. He didn't fear human numbers. But Doc terrified him. He changed the outcome of 5 battles. Threx growled, without ever picking up a weapon. That man makes soldiers braver than bullets. A young Zaan officer whispered, he has no official power. Threx's voice was cold. Power doesn't need permission. He walks, and armies move. And worse, they do it willingly. He pointed to a new screen, a file labeled the Bloodroom Project. It's time we tear open the soul of this human. Back at base, the human commander met with Doc in private. Intel says the Zaan are pulling back. You scared them. Doc shook his head. No, they're adjusting, preparing something else. The commander sighed. Can't you enjoy even one victory? Doc's eyes were serious. When your enemy starts acting quiet, they're not retreating, they're evolving. The next day, an emergency transmission came through. A civilian science team had gone missing in the forested region of Delta Ridge. A human recon drone had caught a final message. Something's not right here. They're using our blood. The transmission cut off. The commander ordered a tactical strike team. Doc interrupted. I'm going. The room went silent. You're not a soldier, Doc. Doc stepped forward. That's why I have to go. If they're experimenting, it's not a job for guns. It's a job for someone who understands life. The commander gave in. Doc, Bren, and 4 guards were flown to Delta Ridge. The forest was strange. Too quiet. No birds, no animal signs. Whispered. Something's wrong with the air. It smells metallic. They moved deeper. Then they saw a hidden door in the ground, half covered by leaves and vines. It wasn't human, it wasn't natural, and it was open. Bren stepped back. We should call for backup. Doc didn't move. If civilians are inside, there may not be time. They entered. The tunnel led down cold, smooth metal walls, humming lights, flickering screens. They reached a massive chamber. Inside, rows of bodies in glass tanks, human bodies. Alive, unconscious, floating in blood-colored fluid. Bren gasped. What is this place? Doc stepped closer. This isn't torture, it's study. One of the guards pointed to a console. Words flickered across the screen in alien code, followed by a translated note. Blood contains memory. Extract the soul. Break the will. A voice rang out through the chamber. Welcome, Doc. Threx stepped from the shadows, flanked by Zaran soldiers. You have entered the blood room, a place not of death, but of understanding. Doc didn't move. Understanding what? Threx grinned. Why humans fight so hard. Why pain becomes power. Why hope refuses to die, even when the body does. He walked closer. We tried to destroy your image, but you're not just a man, you are a symbol. So we created this place, to remove what makes humans human. Doc stared at the bodies. You're trying to remove emotion from memory. Threx nodded. And when we find the key, we will broadcast it into every human mind. You will become empty. The soldiers raised their weapons. Take him. But Doc reached into his coat and pulled out a tiny device, a pulse bomb. Not deadly but strong enough to disable electronics. He activated it. A sharp buzz echoed. Lights flickered. Doors slammed open. Tanks cracked. Alarms screamed. And the humans moved. The bodies inside the tanks were not just victims. They had been waiting. Some were spies. Others were soldiers. Doc had known. The tanks shattered. Humans poured out, gasping, eyes burning with life, and they began to fight. Doc turned to Bren. I knew we'd find something like this, so I planted our people inside. We just needed the door to open. Bren blinked. You used yourself as bait. Doc smiled. Symbols are only powerful if they walk into the fire first. Above the planet, Threx's ship tried to pull them out, but human reinforcements had already surrounded the sky. The blood room was no longer a secret, it was a grave. Doc returned to base. Soaked in fluid and ash. The commander stared. You turned a death chamber into a rebellion. Doc sat down. I didn't do anything. I just opened the door. They walked through it themselves. The commander shook his head. Doc, you're not just healing the wounded. You're healing what war tried to break inside all of us. Doc looked away, quiet. I just remind people, we don't have to be monsters to win. In the dark halls of a distant Zarn ship, Threx stood before a shattered screen. One of his officers whispered, "We failed." Threx said nothing. He looked down at a human dog tag he had taken long ago. It now felt heavier. The screen flickered. A new message glowed across the console. Doc lives. So does the human spirit. Threx turned away. The war was changing, and one man without a title, without a gun, was changing everything. The base was still recovering. After the blood room was destroyed, word spread fast across human ranks, across alien spies. Everyone had heard of the man called Doc, but Doc was quiet. He didn't celebrate. He didn't speak at the medal ceremony. He simply walked through the corridors of the human base, nodding to wounded soldiers, checking vitals, reading silent pain in tired eyes. Bren followed him. You should be proud, she said. You helped save those people. Doc looked at a soldier, missing a leg, and whispered, I didn't save them. I just made sure they had a reason to keep fighting. Meanwhile, in the shadowy chambers of the Galactic Council, panic stirred. The Zarn had shared footage images of Doc, standing in blood and smoke, turning what should have been defeat into hope. A thin insectoid counselor slammed her hand on the table. This human, this Doc, he destabilizes everything. Another alien, a reptilian general, hissed. He does not lead. He does not obey. He simply acts. This makes him dangerous. A third voice, calm and deep, came from the far side of the room. A masked figure leaned forward. Perhaps it's time to test what happens when he is given a choice between saving lives or obeying orders. The others nodded. The trap was set. Back on Earth's moonbase, strange readings came in. A small transport ship had crashed near Sector 9. Only one survivor. Doc was called in. He stood beside the wreckage, looking at the flames, the bent metal, and the lone figure crawling from the fire. A child, alien, barely 10 years old. The child looked up at him with glowing green eyes and whispered in broken English, "Help me." Bren stepped back. Doc, this could be a trap. Doc knelt down and lifted the child gently. I know, but that doesn't matter. A life is still a life. He brought the child into the med-bay. The scans were strange. The child had no known species markers, no known DNA signature, but inside its body was a hidden transmitter, a signal. Bren's eyes widened. It's a beacon. Someone wanted this child to be found. Doc didn't look surprised. I figured, but that means they want something from me, and I'm tired of waiting. That night, Doc sat alone beside the sleeping child. It stirred and whispered, "They watch you. They fear you. Not because of your strength, but because you don't follow rules." Doc raised an eyebrow. "You're not just a child, are you?" The being smiled. "No, I was grown, created. My purpose was to test your heart. They want to know your weakness." Doc leaned in. "And what did you learn?" The being looked sad. "You don't have one." Suddenly, alarms screamed. The base lights turned red. The Galactic Council had launched a precision strike. Their goal, kidnap Doc, not kill. Capture. Elite alien forces landed round the base, cloaked, fast, brutal. They weren't aiming at guards. They weren't attacking weapons. They were heading straight for the med-bay. Doc stood calm. Bren ran in, weapon drawn. "Doc, evac team is 10 minutes out." Doc shook his head. "We don't run." He turned to the child. "Can you send them a message?" The being blinked. "What message?" Doc's voice was steady. "Tell them I'm not afraid. Tell them if they want to test my heart, they better bring theirs." The aliens broke through the outer doors. Smoke filled the corridors. Shots rang out. Doc stood with Bren and a handful of soldiers. He didn't hold a gun. He held a medical injector. Behind him, the child sent out the signal. A message, loud and clear. "Doc stands, not as a soldier, but as a wall. Break him, and the human soul cracks. Fail, and you've awakened something you can't stop." The first wave of attackers rushed in, and then the medbay exploded in light. Not fire, not bullets, but a wall of high-frequency sound. Doc had activated an old Earth medical defense grid, designed to protect hospitals, not destroy enemies. The invaders dropped, screaming, disoriented. Doc moved through them like a ghost, pressing tranquilizers into necks, disabling them without killing. The second wave never made it. Backup had arrived. Human soldiers, fueled by one name, Doc. They fought like demons, not because they were ordered, but because someone had protected the weak. When it was foolish to do so, they fought for him. The battle ended before dawn. Hundreds of alien soldiers were captured. Not one human casualty, and the child was gone. Vanished, no trace. Only a message, left behind. "You passed." Doc returned to his room, exhausted. He looked in the mirror and saw the truth. The galaxy didn't fear human weapons. It feared human compassion, because it couldn't control that. And Doc was the proof. Deep in council space, the masked figure received the final report. He saved the child, fought without rage, and still won. Another counselor asked, "So, what now?" The masked figure spoke softly. "Now we find out what happens when his people are taken from him. Even compassion has limits." Far away, on Earth's edge, the next threat was already being born. The stars above Earth's border station shimmered with silence. Ships passed quietly through the lanes. Cargo was scanned. Soldiers moved in perfect order. But inside Doc 17, something felt off. Doc sat alone at a metal table. His hands were folded, eyes closed. Bren stepped in with 2 coffees. "You okay?" He nodded slowly. "I've been waiting." "For what?" He looked up. "For them to make a mistake big enough that I stop playing nice." Far across the sector, the Galactic Council watched through stolen feeds. Their last operation failed. Doc had proven impossible to manipulate, but their new plan wasn't aimed at him. It was aimed at those around him. Not soldiers, not generals, but medics. Technicians, the quiet ones who followed Doc without question. "They are the heartbeat," one alien said. "Remove them, and the body falls." A mission was set. Infiltrate, separate, break them. That night, while Earth's border station slept, 6 of Doc's people vanished, not in battle. They were taken from their homes, quietly, without a trace. One of them, a young medic named Eli, was Doc's first student. Another, Dr. Mei Lin, had rebuilt half the wounded soldiers from the last. War. Gone. Without warning, Bren ran to Doc's quarters with trembling hands. They took them. No alarms, no trails, just gone. Doc stood, slow and silent. His voice was quiet. "Which direction?" "They're not in known space." Doc opened a locked case beneath his bed. Inside was a black datapad marked with an old, forbidden Earth sigil. Black Zoe. Bren gasped. "That's off-grid. Only high-clearance ghosts go there." Doc didn't blink. "I know. I used to be one of them. In the Council's secret prison located deep inside a hollow moon, Doc's team sat. In metal cells, a voice came from hidden speakers. You are not warriors, you are not leaders, but you are the reason Doc stands. Without you, he crumbles. Eli, the young medic, coughed blood. We're just medics. No, the voice replied. You're the glue. In another cell, Dr. Mei Lin whispered to herself, Doc, please don't come for us. This place isn't survivable. But far above, in a stolen scout ship cloaked in silence, Doc had already arrived. He wasn't alone. With him were 4 others, Bren, Corporal Jed, a stealth AI drone called Mara, and an old sniper named Cone, pulled from retirement. They didn't ask questions. They followed because he was Doc. The prison moon was built to contain monsters. Black holes surrounded the system. No exit, no signals, no help. But Doc wasn't there to ask for permission. He landed the ship directly onto the moon's surface, bypassing every warning. Inside, chaos began. Alarms, defense bots, autoguns, all triggered but all bypassed by Mara's silent hacking. The team moved like shadows. Every step was planned, every move designed to reach the cells. Bren watched Doc move. He didn't speak, he didn't blink, he just walked toward danger with purpose. She whispered, he's not saving friends, he's retrieving family. Inside the prison's control room, the masked warden panicked. How did he find this place? A soldier answered, he's not looking for war, he's looking for his people. That makes him unstoppable. Doc reached the main hallway. Ahead, rows of cells. Behind, locked blast doors. Guards began flooding in. He raised his hand. Cone dropped 6 guards before they blinked. Jed charged, using a shield wall. Bren hacked the cell doors open. Doc stepped forward. Eli looked up, tears in his eyes. You came? Doc knelt beside him, applied an injector, and smiled. Of course, you're mine. More guards came, hundreds, too many to fight. But Doc didn't order a retreat. He opened a side panel on the wall, an old system he had helped design long ago. He whispered to Bren, time to shut this place down permanently. Bren's eyes widened. This will collapse the moon. Doc looked at the faces of his rescued team. Then we give them a story so loud, no one dares touch my people again. Outside, as the moon cracked from within, enemy ships tried to escape, but Earth's signal had gone out. A single ping from Mara. Seconds before the grid fried. Within minutes, Earth warships warped in, too late to help, just in time to witness. The prison moon exploded in silence. Fire bloomed across the stars. A flash, then silence. But from the fire came one ship damaged, sparking, burning. Inside, Doc, his team, and every prisoner he saved. He didn't just survive, he won. Back on Earth, as medics rushed to treat the injured, cameras rolled. The entire galaxy watched the feed. The man with no rank, no badge, but the loyalty of giants. He stood before the crowd, looked into the camera, and spoke. You think leadership comes from medals. You think strength is about weapons. But true power is what happens when someone says, they're mine, and I will come for them. He stepped away. No applause. No salute. Just silence. Because now, even the galaxy's bravest understood. Doc wasn't just a man, he was a promise. The stars above the Terran frontier burned cold. Ships came and went. Trade moved. Patrols scanned. But something had changed. Every alien I was now focused on one human. Not a general. Not a scientist. Just a man they called Doc. No one knew what Doc really stood for. No one could find his real name. No records, no files. Just stories. Stories, whispered in low voices by war veterans, medics, soldiers, and even enemy prisoners. And now the Council wanted answers. In a hidden archive chamber on the waterworld of Grelin, a special research team was formed. Not soldiers, historians, linguists, psychics. They had one task: uncover the origin of Doc. Their leader, a tall being made of glowing threads, stood before a black wall filled with Earth's military records. This human operates outside their system, yet he is their system's strength. He is not a leader by rank but by presence. Another scholar added, and every time he appears, chaos turns into order, fear turns into action. They found recordings, blurry clips from old battles. One, from the siege of Relon, humans retreating, broken and scattered. Then, a silent figure walks into frame. No gun, just a medical bag. He kneels beside a dying soldier. speaks no words. But after that moment, every human in the trench stops running. They turn back, and they win. Another clip, a prison riot on the asteroid mines. Guards overwhelmed, doors broken, weapons taken. Then Doc walks in alone. He looks at the inmates, doesn't speak, just sits down. The prisoners stop. Then they begin handing over their weapons. One by one, order restored. No violence. No explanation. Back on Earth, Doc sat in a small, silent room, no windows, just a single chair. Across from him sat Commander Brax, head of Earth's intelligence. You know, they're digging now, right? Brax asked. Doc gave a faint nod. They've been digging for years. They want your origin, your weakness. What should I tell them? Doc looked him in the eye. Tell them the truth. Brax frowned. Which part? Doc smiled slightly. The part they'll never believe. Meanwhile, the alien scholars cracked something strange. Not in data, not in logic, but in language. They noticed something hidden in the way humans talked about Doc. A pattern. Every quote, every file, every whisper had certain words that repeated. He came when no one else would. He stayed when everyone ran. He never spoke first, but we listened. It wasn't random, it was coded. A silent language built, not with commands, but with actions. One alien psychic put it into words. This Doc is not a man, he is a code of behavior, a living principle, a moral equation. They finally gave the pattern a name, the silent code, and that terrified the Council more than any weapon, because it meant the humans didn't follow orders. They followed Doc. The Council panicked. A new plan was born. They would send one of their own disguised as human, a shifter, a perfect copy. The goal: infiltrate Doc's circle, learn from within, find his flaw. And if possible, become Doc. They chose a young Zarn infiltrator named Sirith. She studied every file, watched every clip, mimicked every movement. She entered Earth's main command center under the name Lieutenant Kala Vance, and she was perfect, until she met him. Doc stood in the training hall, watching recruits practice triage drills. Sirith approached, walking like a human, speaking like one, even sweating like one. "Sir," she said calmly, "may I observe your methods?" Doc looked at her for 3 seconds, only 3, then said, "You're not one of us." Sirith froze. She had trained for this moment, practiced every heartbeat. How Doc turned back to the recruits. "You don't smell like fear." She blinked. "What? Real humans smelled like fear around war. You smell like curiosity." She didn't deny it. Instead, she whispered, "Why do they follow you?" Doc finally faced her fully. His voice was soft. "They don't follow me. They follow the choice I make first." "What choice?" "To stay human when war wants you, to be a monster." Sirith didn't respond. She left that night, and when she returned to the Council, she said just one sentence: "You can copy his face, but not his heart." Back on Earth, strange things began happening. People started calling other medics Doc, started using the word like a title. One soldier on the front lines said, "You don't need to be him. You just need to be like him." In refugee camps, medics wrote Doc on their jackets with marker pens. No rank, no orders, just belief. The Council watched with horror. The man had become a movement. He was no longer a threat. He was a mirror, reflecting the best part of humanity, even when the worst was expected. One night, Brax visited Doc again. This time, he wasn't calm. "The galaxy's afraid of you. Not just the Council, even our allies. They say you're unpredictable." Doc was silent. "They want you to speak publicly." Brax continued. "Say something to calm them down. Tell them you follow orders. Tell them you're not a problem." Doc stood up. "Then they'll be waiting forever." "Why?" "Because I'm not here to calm fears. I'm here to remind them what happens when fear controls decisions. People die." Brax stared. "You're going to start a war." Doc shook his head. "I'm going to finish one they started a long time ago when they decided humans should be predictable." Far away, the Council gathered once more. They had failed to control him, failed to understand him, failed to copy him. One final vote was cast: terminate Doc. No more spies, no more experiments, just elimination. The fleet was prepared, invisible, silent, a full strike force, headed straight for Earth. Their goal: erase the man. And the idea, but what they didn't know was, this Earth already knew. Bren had hacked their signals weeks ago. Doc had read every message, seen every plan, and he did. Nothing. Until the night before they arrived, he stood before every base, every camp, every station, and said one simple line: I am not Earth's shield, I am Earth's reminder. And tomorrow, they will learn what happens when you attack the people behind me. And the galaxy held its breath. The sky was clear, too clear. Not a single ship moved across Earth's orbital grid. Traffic was suspended, civilian crafts grounded, battle stations active but silent. Something was coming. Everyone knew it. And at the center of it all, a man with no rank, he stood quietly on Earth's observation deck 12, hands behind his back. They called him Doc. And today, he didn't blink. The Galactic Council fleet was massive. 5 dreadnoughts, 72 strike cruisers, 1 stealth command ship, all cloaked, all armed, all prepared to strike the fleet. Commander, Admiral Grailsith, a creature made of liquid metal and pride, stared at Earth through the visor. No more patience, he growled. This time, the human legend dies. Back on Earth, General Cass stood near Doc. You sure about this? We could fire first. End it now. Doc's voice was calm. Book quotes, no. Let them make the mistake. You think they'll blink? Doc smiled. Faintly, they already have. They sent a fleet. That means they're afraid. Cass looked out at the sky. Then what's the plan? Doc turned. We let them land. Cass stared. What? You heard me. We let them come down. Let them try. In a secret command bunker deep under the Earth's crust, elite soldiers and technicians watched the fleet approach. They were tense. One wrong move, and Earth would burn. But then a message pinged. From Doc, just 3 words. Let them land. The entire command center went quiet. No one questioned it. Because by now, they understood something the Council never did. Doc didn't give orders. He made promises. Minutes later, the sky tore open. Cloaked ships appeared, one by one. They entered Earth's airspace. People watched from rooftops. Children stared from bunkers. Pilots gripped their controls. But Earth did not fire. Not a single missile. Not a single warning. The Council fleet touched down in 20 different zones. They expected resistance. There was none. Just empty fields. Flat terrain. No walls. No guns. Nothing. Until the silence broke. A sound echoed through every speaker. Every comline. Every radio. Footsteps.oneset.com. Steady. Then a voice. Doc's voice. You came to break us. But you forgot. Humans are not held together by fear. We are held together by each other. And suddenly, the terrain shifted. The flatlands around each landing zone shimmered. It wasn't empty. It was camouflaged. Thousands of soldiers stood hidden in silent armor. No weapons. Drawn. No threats. Just presence. Behind them, medics, engineers, elderly, even children. Everyone wore one thing in common. A symbol painted on their chest. Doc. Not a name. Not a title. A warning. Grailsith watched through the ship's scope. This is not war. What is this? An officer beside him whispered. They're not preparing to fight us. They're preparing to bury us. Doc stepped out onto one of the landing sites. Alone. No weapon. No armor. Just a backpack with med supplies. He walked up to the lead dreadnought. It didn't fire its sensors. Screamed. It scanned for threats. Found none. Except him. A door hissed open. Grailsith stepped out, flanked by guards. This is your stand. Doc tilted his head. I don't stand. I serve. Big difference. You're surrounded by civilians. No, you're surrounded by people who've survived every lie you told them. Grailsith raised a clawed hand. I could kill you right now. Doc stepped forward. Then do it, and watch what happens next. The guards hesitated. Their scanners showed no weapon, but their guts said, do not touch him. Grailsith lowered his hand. This was a mistake. Doc nodded. Double quotes. Yes, but not yours. The mistake was thinking Doc was a person you could eliminate. Doc is an idea, one that spread. And now, you've landed in a world that bleeds it. Behind him, tens of thousands of Earth citizens stood in silence, not chanting. Not armed, just watching. Calm, unshaken. Doc turned and walked away. Didn't run, didn't threaten, just left. And that was the moment the Council finally understood. They couldn't win. Not because of Earth's tech, not because of numbers, but because Earth didn't flinch. Grailsith returned to his command ship. Abort mission, he whispered. Retreat. His second asked. No, collapse it. The fleet, the records, everything we ever built to fight humans. It's useless now. and the fleet lifted off, not a shot fired, not a body dropped. The greatest show of force in Council history undone by silence. Back on Earth, Doc stood in a quiet room. Bren entered, eyes wide. They're leaving. All of them. Doc nodded. Good. Maybe now they'll learn what. Looked up at the sky. That when you come for people like me, you better pray I'm the only one of my kind. From that day forward, across hundreds of systems, something strange happened. Aliens started saying the word Doc with caution. Children played games pretending to be him. Armies built training centers not for war, but for restraint, healing, protection, because now they understood. Doc wasn't just a human. He was Earth's reminder that strength wasn't how loud you roared, but how silent you stood. When the galaxy came to knock, a week had passed since the Council fleet left Earth. No war, no treaty, no broadcasted surrender. They had simply vanished, but the silence they left behind was loud. Too loud. On the far edge of the Orion Belt, inside a dark, floating fortress, alien leaders gathered, not politicians, not generals. These were the true powers, those who whispered in shadows and pulled strings across galaxies. And they all had one question: who is Doc? The meeting chamber buzzed with tension. Holograms of the Earth encounter played on loop. One alien with crystal eyes slammed the table. He walked up to a dreadnought and left untouched. Another, tall and scaled, hissed, he carries no weapons, commands no army, and yet, he controls Earth. They replayed the footage. Doc, stepping forward. Doc, speaking softly. Doc, turning away without fear. And the humans, thousands of them standing behind him in total silence, unshaken, unbreakable. One leader, old and wise, leaned forward. Perhaps he is not one man. The room went quiet. What do you mean? The elder's voice was soft. I mean, perhaps the name Doc is passed on, an idea, a title, a weapon Earth uses, without firing. Eyes widened, because if that was true, they had no way to stop it. Meanwhile, back on Earth, a small transport ship landed in the ruins of Outpost Theta, one of Earth's oldest and most hidden black sites. Doc stepped out, alone. He looked around. Dust, silence. The place had been abandoned since the last alien breach, decades ago. But now, something called him back. Inside the outpost, doors creaked open, lights flickered, old tech hummed to life at his presence. Doc walked through, fingers brushing old consoles, and finally, he stopped before a sealed metal door. The label was faded, but still readable. D-Class Protocol, Doctrine Zero. In a hidden sector of the outpost, the walls were lined with data cores, each one labeled, each one carrying a name. Not generals, not presidents, not scientists, but medics, healers, disaster responders, counselors, and next to each name, Doc stood still. This was where it began, where Earth's most powerful idea was born, not to fight, but to stand. And he wasn't the first, he was just the latest. A voice came from the shadows. You shouldn't have come alone. Doc turned. Bren stepped forward, gun on her belt, concern in her eyes. This place is locked for a reason. I needed to remember, Doc said softly. Remember what? That I'm not a soldier. Bren nodded. But you fight like one. Doc smiled faintly. No, I lead like a healer, and that's why they're afraid. Suddenly, an alert pinged through their wristbands. Unidentified energy surge. Location, Mars Station Alpha. Doc looked at Bren. Ready. She sighed. We just got back from stopping a war, and now we're going to stop another. Mars Station Alpha was a research base, quiet, low security, mostly scientists, but now, its atmosphere was tense. An alien object had appeared without warning right outside its shield. Not a ship, not a weapon, a pod, black, silent. Inside a being, sat alone, no weapons, no gear. Just message, I seek Doc. Doc arrived within the hour. As his boots hit the red soil of Mars, the base commander ran to him. We've scanned it. Nothing harmful, no traps, but we don't know what it wants. Doc nodded. He approached the pod. It hissed and opened. The being inside was tall, dark blue, with glowing veins and eyes full of sorrow. Are you the one they call Doc? It asked in a low voice. I am. The alien stepped out, kneeling. My name is Velshara. I was once a hunter for the galactic shadows. I've come to surrender. Doc raised an eyebrow. Why? Velshara looked up, trembling. Because I was sent to kill you. and I realized something terrifying. Go on, the alien's voice cracked. You are not a man, you are hope dressed in skin, and I have killed enough hope in my lifetime. Doc stood silent for a moment. Then he held out his hand. Velshera flinched, but Doc only said, "Then help me stop others like you." Back in the galactic fortress, the leaders received the message. One of their own had switched sides, voluntarily, out of respect, out of fear, out of something deeper. The room erupted in chaos. "This is how it spreads." One screamed, "It's not his strength." Another yelled, "It's the way he makes them believe." The elder leader whispered, "No, it's the way he makes them feel seen. That's a power we've never understood." On Earth, Doc stood at a cliff, watching the stars. Beside him, Velshara meditated in silence. Bren approached. "So, you just accepted him, after everything?" "Yes," Doc replied, "because the galaxy doesn't need more punishment. It needs more second chances." Far above, a secret transmission was sent out. From deep space. Unknown origin. Only one line. Project Doc is no longer a name. It's a movement. And across colonies, across systems, quiet whispers began. People started writing Doc on walls, painting it on shields, carving it into stone. Not as a warning, but as a reminder that someone still stood between chaos and survival. Not with guns, not with orders, but with presence, with presence, with the kind of power no enemy could break. The galaxy had changed. A silent revolution was underway. Across star systems and planets, the word Doc carried a new meaning, not just a name, but a symbol of hope and strength without violence. But while many celebrated, others prepared for a war unseen, because power like this always had enemies. Far from Earth's peaceful orbit, in the darkened halls of the Shadow Syndicate's fortress, a plan was unfolding, a plan to crush the Doc movement before it could spread any further. The Syndicate was a hidden network of spies, assassins, and mercenaries who thrived on chaos and fear. They saw Doc as a traitor, dangerous idea that could break their control. In the central chamber, the leader, a tall figure draped in black and silver, addressed his lieutenants. Doc is not just one man. It is a virus infecting every system. It spreads hope, compassion, and loyalty. One lieutenant snarled, "How do we fight an idea?" The leader smiled coldly. "We don't. We fight the people behind it." "Who are they?" "First, the alien who betrayed us, Velshera, and then, the man they call Doc." The room darkened as the leaders' eyes glowed. "We send a message, one that will shatter their silence forever." Back on Earth, Doc trained quietly with Bren and Velshera. The three were an unlikely team. Doc, the silent leader with a healer's heart. Bren, the fierce soldier who never questioned orders. Velshera, the alien who abandoned her past for peace. Together, they prepared for whatever came next. One evening, as the stars flickered overhead, Bren broke the silence. "Doc, if this war isn't fought with guns, then how do we win?" Doc looked at her, calm as ever. "We fight with trust, with courage, with the truth that no enemy can hide from." Bren frowned. "But what if the Syndicate doesn't care about truth?" Doc smiled faintly. "Then we give them something else. Fear." Suddenly, alarms blared across Earth's command centers. Unknown ships were warping into the solar system. The Shadow Syndicate had arrived. Their fleet was smaller than the Council's, but faster and deadlier. They didn't want peace. They wanted total control, and they wanted to break the Doc movement. Doc stood on the observation deck, watching the enemy approach. Behind him, thousands of Earth defenders readied their weapons. But Doc raised a hand. "Wait." General Cass gritted his teeth. "Wait, they're coming to kill us." Doc nodded slowly. "Yes, but first, we speak." The Syndicate flagship hovered above Earth's atmosphere. From it, a dark figure stepped down onto a platform. A woman, cold and cruel, eyes like ice. She was known as Nyx, the Syndicate's deadliest assassin and master manipulator. She spoke into a calm device. "Tell Doc I am here, alone, to negotiate." Her voice sent chills through every Earth soldier. She was as dangerous as any weapon. Doc met Nyx on neutral ground, a ruined cityscape where no civilians lived. They faced each other in silence for a long moment. Nyx smiled. "You think you can stop me? You, a healer with no army?" Doc's eyes were steady. "I don't need an army to stop you. I just need to show you who we really are." Nyx laughed bitterly. "Show me. I've seen what your hope does. I've seen the chaos behind your..." "Silence." Doc shook his head. "That's what you see. But I see something different. He stepped closer. Look around. The ruins were filled with quiet watchers, soldiers, medics, civilians, all holding their ground. No fear, no hate, just resilience. Nyx frowned. Why don't you fight back? Because fighting without reason is weakness. And you're strong. I'm human. The word hung heavy between them. Nyx looked away, conflicted. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Explosions echoed in the distance. Nyx's guards opened fire. Doc raised his hand. Wait. A wave of calm spread through the crowd. The guns stopped. The tension eased. Doc turned to Nyx. This is your choice. Join us, or be left behind. Nyx hesitated. For a moment, she looked like she might lower her weapon. But then, with a sneer, she said, "You're a fool," and vanished in a blink. The battle was inevitable. The Syndicate launched strikes against Earth's outposts and supply lines. But Doc's people fought back not with rage, but with precision and care. They saved lives, even of Syndicate soldiers, who surrendered. And slowly, the tide began to turn. One night, Doc received a secret message. It was from Nyx, not a threat, a single sentence. "I'm watching." Doc smiled softly. "So am I." As the stars glimmered far away, Earth's defenders stood united, not because of fear, not because of hatred, but because of something far stronger, hope, and the silent power of a man called Doc, the healer, who led without orders and fought without weapons. The man who showed the galaxy that sometimes the loudest command is no command at all. The galaxy held its breath. After months of silent battles and whispered alliances, the stage was set for the ultimate confrontation. The Shadow Syndicate and the Doc, movement to forces at opposite ends of the cosmic scale, were about to collide. But this war would not be fought with guns or armies. It would be fought in minds, hearts, and the fragile space between trust and fear. On Earth, Doc stood before a crowd unlike any he had ever seen. Not soldiers, not politicians, but ordinary people. Farmers, teachers, children. They had come from every corner of the planet, united by a single purpose: to stand, to hold fast, to be the silence that breaks the storm. Doc's voice was calm but firm. "We do not fight because we want war. We fight because peace demands courage. Because silence is not weakness, it is the shield of those who will not give up." The crowd listened, eyes bright with hope, mouths silent but hearts roaring. In the Syndicate's fortress, Nyx watched the broadcast. Her cold eyes narrowed. How can they stand so firm without weapons? A voice behind her spoke softly. "Because they have something we don't." Nyx turned compassion. The other smiled grimly. "No, something older. The truth that even fear cannot hide from." Nyx clenched her fists. "We will break them. We will try," the voice said. "But this war will change everything." Elsewhere, Velshara and Bren prepared the final mission, a daring plan to infiltrate the Syndicate's main ship and send a message that would shake the galaxy. Velshara checked her weapons. "This could end badly." Bren nodded. "But if we don't try, it ends worse." Doc joined them quietly. "We don't fight to destroy, we fight to awaken." The infiltration was swift and silent. Velshara slipped past guards with shadows as her allies. Bren covered every angle, sharp and steady. Doc moved like a ghost unseen. But everywhere they reached the Syndicate's control room. Inside, they found the leader, the one who ordered the attacks, a figure draped in darkness, eyes glowing with cold fire. He laughed, bitter and low. "You think you can change the galaxy with words?" Doc stepped forward. "No, we change it with actions." Suddenly, screens lit up around the room, images of peace, rescue, and courage from countless worlds. The leader's expression faltered. "What is this?" Velshara spoke, voice steady. "This is the truth you tried to hide." Bren added, "A reminder that even in the darkest times, light finds a way." The leader clenched his fists, rage burning bright, but the power of their message was stronger. Back on Earth, the people watched as the Syndicate's ships began to retreat. One by one, systems formerly under Syndicate control declared peace. Whispers of Doc grew louder, no longer a secret, but a symbol of unity. Doc stood among the crowd again. "This is not the end, it is only the beginning." The power behind a simple name can change the fate of worlds. And for the first time in a long time, the galaxy smiled. Not because the war was over, but because a new kind of war had begun, one fought with courage, compassion, and the silent strength of those who lead without orders. And somewhere in The quiet depths of space, a new transmission echoed. Project Doc is alive. Forever. The end.